Hi everybody and big welcome to a card review for Thanos Solemn Survivor. Let's talk about how good he is, what he can do in competitive EDH. So he's a 2 mana, 1 blue, 1 generic for a 1 free human artificer legendary mono blue creature. You can tap him, pay 2 colorless mana to create a token that's a copy of up to 1 target artifact token you control, then mill 2 cards. Now, very important, and this is where everything just goes wrong, you're not duplicating a card, you have to duplicate a token. So you can't sit and duplicate Soul Ring, so you have to have a token of Soul Ring first. So most likely you're gonna be sitting there and duplicating treasures. And that isn't terrible, but it's not like wow either. It's like, okay, sure. However, I have some good news. You don't actually need to create a copy of a token. You see, up to 1. So you don't need to do anything with this, because the second part here is that you mill 2 cards. So you could end up looking at this with simply saying pay 2 mana, tap it, mill 2 cards, and that isn't amazing either, but it's something. Like getting cards from your deck into your grave, that is good, we can work with that. Especially when we look at the secondary ability, which is the one that is actually making this pretty interesting, and also why it's getting the Esper color identity. So for black, blue, white and 1 generic, and you tap this thing, sacrifice 2 artifact tokens, exile an artifact or creature card from your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, except it's an artifact in addition to other types, only as a sorcery activation on this ability. So suddenly we can reanimate things like Bola Citadel or a Rasakef, or well, we're not really reanimating them, we're creating tokens out of them. However, you still need to sacrifice 2 token artifacts. So in the end you need to produce treasures somehow, which isn't that hard by the way, but once you generate your treasures you can use your commander and reanimate cool things. There is even a potential 2-card combo with Corridor Monitor and Ashnod's Altar. So the trick here is that you get your Corridor Monitor into your graveyard and Ashnod's Altar into play, and you have 2 tokens. Then you use your commander Thanos to create a token of Corridor Monitor. On the ETB you will untap the commander, and then you can tap 2 and tap the commander to create a new token of Corridor Monitor. Now you will untap your commander and you will mill 2 cards, and then you can sacrifice one of these 2 tokens to Ashnod's Altar, and you can repeat this process and mill out your entire deck into your graveyard. And then you just win with Thassa's Oracle. You can use your commander to reanimate a Thassa's Oracle here, by the way. Kinda easy. So there are a few things I like here and there are a few things I dislike here. What I really like is that you can't really interact with counterspells against this, as you're putting a token into play of what you're reanimating. So no counterspell will prevent you from getting that token of Bola Citadel. Now spot removal will always do the job, but counterspell won't work here. Now what I dislike is that you have to play a bunch of, or quite not a bunch of, quite a lot of token generations. Now there are some great ones, for example Smothering Tide will be an out to include inside this commander for sure, but you probably need more. And to increase consistency and make this commander efficient so you're not sitting there unable to activate, you need to have tokens for both of his abilities. You need to include cards with synergy that might end up being bad cards. Honestly, I think this commander would be a lot stronger with the color identity axis of red, because red has a lot of cards individually good on their own that happens to produce treasures like Professional Facebreaker, Ragavan and Dockside Extortionist. But alas, we have to do without. And that is where I think this deck will basically stumble forward with problems. You need to produce tokens somehow, you have to include bad cards or probably some bad cards to make the deck consistent, and then you gotta get your cool combo piece into your graveyard somehow, and then you're gonna activate your commander spending 4 mana to get that combo piece into play, and then you're gonna win the game. I honestly just think there are too many hoops, too many workarounds to get somewhere with this guy, honestly. So in the end he has problems, probably not something for cEDH, but what about lower power levels? So first up, there are a lot of potential cool cards that could synergize with him. Once again, milling is actually pretty good. Putting cards from your library into your grave, we could utilize that. For example, flashback spells like Deep Analysis, Flash of Insight, but also Delve. We could also mill the Blue Hermit and disturb it into play. And there's also a pretty nice synergy with Emry, Lurker of the Lock, and Thanos. As well as Ursa, creating a construct, a token that we can create more of with Thanos. I do hope I'm pronouncing him correctly here, Thanos, but I'm not certain. Karn Sign of Ursa is an additional option to create that token that we can make more copies of with Thanos, and here we're definitely creating an army. But why create treasures when you can create gold? Here we have a King Makard Gold Cursed. Whenever this guy gets untapped, you may exile target creature, and if you do, you will create a gold token, and then you can use Thanos to create more gold. Well, this is a very mediocre, not really good for cEDH, but it's kinda cool in higher power levels. It's an interaction that will create value for you. But this really showcases what this commander deck would lead towards, because you need to include a lot of cards that are gonna produce tokens, so you might end up including things like this, and this will move your deck more to a slower mid-range deck, because in the end it will be hard to actually be that turbo fast combo reanimator deck trying to bring Razaketh into play. There are honestly just better commanders on the same colored entities or more that are doing the exact same thing but better, more efficient, more consistent, and have better commanders in the command zone that does the same thing but more things at the same time. For example, Rafine Scheming Seer is great with a Razaketh strategy. So as a finalized review for Thanos, kinda cool but not that great. He definitely has a cEDH style of a game plan, but it just struggles and there are too many hoops he needs to solve to get there. He should still be a pretty decent high power, mid-range commander of sorts, basically going for a construct beatdown plan where you have cards that will create the initial construct, either Ursa, Karn Sign of Ursa, or something of the sort, and then you sit here with this commander, just multiply those while you're milling cards and utilize flashback spells, delve spells, and maybe reanimate some big artifacts or big creatures from the graveyard as a big casual stompy thing. That could still kinda work out. But in the end, for cEDH, I don't think it's that good. And that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you liked it. And take care, guys, and I'll see you next time.